bought the house, all the closets had this kind of closet rod in here. They're kind of cool. They're adjustable and you can slide the coats back and forth, but you can only put that many coats on. Anything more than that and you're pretty much out of luck. And if you try and put more than one coat on a hook, it gets really messy because coats are big. So it just limits the amount of use that we can get out of the closet. So I'm going to replace this with a closet bar. First thing I need to do is remove the old one. These old straight bit screws don't work so well with a power driver, but they're small. A fun toy for a kid. Straight bit screws have this problem of getting paint into the slot. Phillips do too. I run into more straight bits with it, I suppose, because there's more of them around in the older houses. I'm not going to reuse these screws. Something I found when I'm doing projects around the house, though, Ziploc bags. It's a great idea. You take screws out that you're going to be reusing. You just put them in a Ziploc bag. You take a felt tip marker and write on the outside what it is. Years later, you can still tell those are the screws that came out of the closet. Now, this is a closet rod flange set. Fairly simple. You put one on one side of the closet and one on the other. You put the closed loop on one side of the closet and the open loop on the other. Make sure that you have the open part up. You want to have the rod sit down in it and not fall out. Because this cove molding is kind of rounded, I end up putting a shim underneath it. But I put the first two screws in. That holds it in place while I get the shim around and put it underneath the bottom one. If you take the two screws, if you look at this one, it's got one on either side. This one has three. Take the top two, put them about there, and then drive the screws in. Don't tighten them up all the way. You can take a little wooden block and put it underneath there, drill a hole through it, and anchor it to that. Works quite well. Same thing on this side. Just have to trim this wedge down so that it fits up against the bottom of the shelf. Makes a good solid support for the hanger. That's good. Trim it off so it looks a little nicer. That's going to work fine. And what I'm doing here, because the hole pattern is different and the top doesn't go all the way around, so I can't easily just use it against that, I'm going to use the bottom. Put the top of this up against the top of the bar. Now I just make a line even with the bottom. So when I hold this up there, all I have to do is get the bottom lined up with it, and then I know that my two holes go right there. Now my bar will be level. And to start the screws, just going to use a scratch awl. Now when I put the shim in, I'm going to use a drill, but I prefer the scratch awl. Not a lot of effort, and it makes a nice starting point for the screw, but it gives the screw full engagement into the wood. Now sometimes if you're putting in something like a lag bolt, you got to drill a hole just because the shank is so big. The screws I'm going to be using for these little guys are pretty small. And I know I like the old hand tools, but my DeWalt driver makes these little jobs so much nicer because I don't have to fight banging my knuckles against things trying to get the screw started. And when it does come time to drill a hole, just a simple matter of popping the one bit out. If you use these special drills, they got a little hex shank on them. Just have to pull the collar out, drop the drill bit in, and let go of the collar. No chuck key required. Same thing taking it out. Just pull out on the collar. There you go. Good and strong. Now the hangers are done, we just need to cut the pipe. You want to make the pipe just a little bit short. I got 35 1/8 to the wall, so I'm going to make the pipe 35 inches long. There's an old saying that it's always easier to cut off a little bit more than it is to add a little bit on, except in the case of pipe. When you cut a little bit off the end and you're just a little bit too long, then you spend a lot of time trying to trim it down just a little bit. If you cut it just a little bit short in these hangers, there'll be a little bit of rattle in there, but how often is it going to rattle? The house doesn't move and the coats will be hanging on it, so it'll stay pretty much. Use my new little vise. Cleaning off the burrs makes it so that you don't cut yourself as you go along through the project. You put one end into the round hole and the other one into the U, and then there you are, honey solid.